Oh, there we go. Hello and welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. My name is Laura Bradburn. We are on the Friday show and I am joined by the original lineup for the first time in a wee while. I'll go to Tony first. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura, yourself. And I was just saying, excuse the Barnet because I'm getting it cut the minute this broadcast stops. So I know it's before the watershed, but...
Aye, all out in your good clobber for the big boys down in London, and then we get this. What's that about?
Yes, I have perfected the hedge drag through a man backwards today. So, yeah, there you go.
Excellent. And I'm also joined by Jim Orr. How you doing, Jim?
Good, Laura. Good to be here.
Good. Another, an interesting week for us. Obviously, a big result in Europe to talk about. I know that you both were at the game, so I'd be fascinated to get your thoughts on that, and I'll look ahead to the game tomorrow against St Johnstone as well this weekend, which, as always, we'll be covering on our match coverage. But before we do that, Tony, we were talking a little bit before we came on air, and I really wanted to get your thoughts as a journalist, as somebody who's been in this game, if you want to put it that way, for over 20 years. And I've seen a lot of videos doing the rounds. There was one in Australia that got quite a bit of traction of, a sort of Ange's best bits of his responses to journalists and reporters. He's become quite famed for the sharpness of his tongue and the turn of phrase that he uses. As a journalist, everybody's having a good laugh with it and things like that. But what are your thoughts on it as somebody who, has been in that professional environment?
I first thought to see if he calls you mate, you're in trouble. Right? There's a googly coming your way if he calls you mate. Listen, it's football showbiz. He's a grown up, he's an adult. He can answer the questions in whatever way he wants. But see if he perceives it to be disrespectful, then expect a disrespectful answer. I stood next to him last week when one of the journalists asked him, "You've cut the gap to 4 points." And he did. He shot him a glance, and it was humorous. And he says, "I thought the league was over, mate." And he half cocked a smile. That doesn't come through on broadcast or when it's put out there, But I was standing in it, and he was laughing. He was, and he said, "We'll just run our own race." It was just a kind of a wee bar back, as if, 2 weeks ago the league was supposedly over. It's not. I told you that, but so I've got no qualms about Ange answering questions the way he wants. I say we're all adults. It's is he somebody that I want to face on a regular basis? Of course it is. I want to know his thoughts. The question after that I asked him was, this team's got gears, because I said it was a controlled measure performance without actually hitting heights and hitting the gears, and he agreed, and he spoke about that as well, that I've been telling you that since I came in, that kind of thing. So it's the old phrase, isn't it? Ask a silly question, expect a silly answer. Ask a disrespectful question, then you'll get a disrespectful answer back. And the clips that are doing the rounds, Australians are probably a bit bemused by the nature and style and the phrasing of certain questions. Can understand that, but a lot of managers get questions like that, and then they'll say, but they don't ask questions like this to Steven Gerrard or whoever, but journalists ask questions that they see fit, that they think are relevant at the time. Sometimes they might come out and go, maybe wasn't expecting that answer. But as I say, football managers and players are adults. They can choose to answer the questions whatever way they see fit, and nobody's shaping their minds. And sometimes, the questions might be loaded in a certain way. You can say to a player, "Was that your best goal ever?" You're looking for the best ever goal headline, aren't you? But a lot of them can see that coming around the corner. Ange is pretty shrewd. I think he can see that coming around the corner, and I think he'll defend his club, he'll defend his players, he'll defend his system, and he'll defend himself at every conceivable opportunity. And I always say that some managers and players are comfortable doing their media duties, some aren't. But I think Ange's got a great sense of humour. It's very deadpan. It can be a bit, and that can also involve some bad comments. But I think we can also feel guilty of taking things a bit too serious. The guy's only been here for a few months. He is lightening up. He's beginning to show that he's enjoying it and cracking some kind of one-liners as well. Maybe he wants a bit back from the journalists as well. So, as I say, I've got no qualms about putting myself in that environment and firing questions into them. And, and I'm always of the opinion, if I ask a silly question, I'll get a silly answer. And if I'm disrespectful then to someone, or they perceive me to be disrespectful, then I will get a disrespectful answer back. So it's as I said there, it's football showbiz, and nobody gets hurt at the end of the day. Nothing bad happens. So as Jim would say, you ask a question, you get an answer, you move on.
Yeah, no, it's one of these things that, it's interesting you raised that point about, setting them up for the answer that you want with the question that you give, and that's something that as a host I've like trained myself to do a little bit. We've talked off air about, the nature of
set me up for that question.
me basically knowing what you want to say or what I think you will say, and setting up the question in that way. And that's one reason I'm glad I don't have to speak to Ange Postecoglou, because I'm not always entirely sure what's going to come out his mouth. But Jim, Tony raised an interesting point about it there. I think there's a bit of a divide amongst the support. Some people seem to be sharing these comments from Ange in a kind of, you get them, tell Ange, they ask rubbish questions, give them all you can with the answers back. But where do you sit on that? For you, is it more what Tony says, the humorous side, or is he thinking some of the questions are disrespectful and sort of giving as good as he gets?
I think Tony's giving you a very good insight from his side of the fence. I think from the fans' side of the fence, it is all good fun. And I think we live in this goldfish bowl where we scrutinise every word that people say and how they say it, and interpret that through our own vision and think, well, he's having a go, he's not having a go. I think the big chap's really good fun. I think he's refreshing. He's not from the goldfish bowl. So when he gets asked certain types of questions, he looks totally bemused to me. As if to say, why are you asking me that question? And you can see he's holding himself back, I think, from saying, you're an idiot. Don't ask me questions like that. So I think it's good fun. I just think because the whole thing is so intense, every game's a must-win game. We're looking for reasons why things didn't happen. We're questioning refereeing decisions, etc., etc. So we're all a bit hyper. And I've always said right after a game is maybe not the best time to talk to people. That's why I'll never go on one of these match day podcasts, because you're full of emotion at that point in time. And then once you kind of sit back and reflect on it, then you will say something a bit different, maybe a bit more sensible. And I think he's good fun, and long may it continue. And I think he's coming at this with a completely different set of eyes, and his eyes have been opened. And I think the Australians are then having their eyes opened as well, having to look what the big man's having to deal with. So at the end of the day, as Tony says, nobody gets hurt in this thing. I mean, much as we might malign journalists, it's a skilled profession, And as you know yourself, Laura, how you ask questions, when you ask questions, the way you ask questions, how you read people, are they open questions, are they closed questions, all that kind of stuff goes into this as well. And I'm okay with that. I think it's good fun. And given social media is just absolutely bonkers most of the time, it's more food for that, I think. And he is quite funny, as Tony alluded to then. He has got that kind of deadpan sense of humour. And he's under tons of pressure as well.
Yeah.
Wait till he wins the league and laugh a minute with a big jumper. Laugh a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been good fun. I think it's been refreshing, like you say, to have somebody kind of coming out and looking at the goldfish bowl that is Scottish football and the relatively small pond that it is compared to some of the bits of the world he's seen, and him kind of, alluding to that.
It's the obdurate eyes that are on it, Laura. That's what's refreshing and interesting to yourself, Jim, and I, and myself. So
and that's actually the main point, Tony. That's actually the main point, because the thing if you put on a radio station, TV station, you've got the same people who've been in this game forever, so they're looking at it through their eyes again, and it's good to get somebody to come in who's not looking at it through those eyes and pointing out some things that no one else has pointed out before. And that's why, I don't think our game is particularly good at the moment. I don't think our standing is particularly good, because I think we tend to repeat the same old mistakes. The people who are in the SFA, are kind of come through the same route again, and to have new people coming in with new ideas, that's how you get on, and that's what's exciting about Ange. Whether we win the league or not, it's going to be a dead exciting season. There's going to be loads of interesting things the big guy's going to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always, it's funny, especially obviously last season. I wasn't really particularly interested towards the end of his reign what the previous manager had to say, but I'm always tuning into Ange's press conferences because I'm always interested to see what they have to say. And I'm glad to say that folk on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, everybody who's watching seems to be interested in what we're saying. Stevie on YouTube says, good to see the original Friday lineup back. And Jim's upgraded his Wi-Fi. I think you're a bit.
Oh, that was years ago. For goodness sake,
I was
get
going
over
to
it.
say.
Get over it. Get
I was
over it.
going to say that's a few months ago now. Come on,
That was
Stevie.
almost Ange-like riposte there, Jim.
Aye. I've handed my walkie-talkie in with a big string in the middle. That's away.
But no, I have to say I'm glad to be the original lineup's back together and glad that everybody can see it. But we will move on from Ange and his retorts, humorous or otherwise, to talk a little bit more about the game. I was going to say Tuesday night there, but obviously it was Tuesday afternoon at 3:30 kickoff. Jim, I'll come to you first. The first thing that came to mind for me was the turnout. Was incredible for the time that it was on at, the amount of shuffling of work and school duties and things like that people have to do. Did the atmosphere live up to the expectations as much as the attendance did for you?
First thing, see, the traffic is horrendous around Celtic Park in most match days, and it was worse on Tuesday afternoon. So if anyone's listening who can do anything about the traffic situation, going to get your finger out and do something, because it's just awful. Wasn't surprised in the crowd. You would expect a big crowd for a European game, quite surreal, playing at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. There should be no need for it. And the Green Brigade put banners up to that effect. And when you look at the reasons why we were playing, because there was Champions League football on night, and football's, to me, is completely lost the plot. If that's how they've been dictated to, it shouldn't happen. But yeah, I mean, I expected a big crowd. 50,000 is a good sized crowd. Surprised it wasn't even more than that, to be honest, given the fact we've got 50,000 season tickets. But then again, people maybe can't get off work or off school or whatever. It's okay for kind of old retired people like me who can just wander along. But yeah, it was good crowds. That was a bit of a so-so first half, to be honest. Half time I'm thinking, well, if this is European football, am I that bothered? Because I thought they kind of cancelled each other out. But when the goal went in, because of the quality of the goal, I think it just raised the whole place. The atmosphere suddenly went from to like, whoa.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, we're right into it then. And play some really good football. Should have scored bags load more goals, and hopefully we don't regret that, because there's no reason why we can't go over there and lose 2-0, and we're down to goal difference and what have you. That 4-0 scalping the other week might come into it. So I think we're missing too many chances. We're not working the goalkeepers enough. Same happened to Motherwell last week. We need to put games to bed. So I always talk about that when you're 2 goals up, you're in that kind of endurance zone. You're waiting for them to score, and all of a sudden panic stations hit. So you need that third goal to get into the the kind of enjoyment zone that you can sit back and think, well, 3 goals up, we're not going to lose this. But I thought it was a really good performance. I thought Ralston was outstanding again. If I had to pick my top 5 players this season, he's certainly in that top 5. I thought he was outstanding. He's consistently given us 7 out of 10 performances every single week. And he's also, without going over old ground, he's doing Abada's job as well. Abada never beats anyone. Abada gets the ball and waits for Tony. Where's Tony? There's Tony. Passes the ball to Tony. See, Ralston's he's playing fullback. He's playing that inverted midfield fullback, and he's playing right winger. He's been absolutely outstanding, Tony Ralston. So good performance, great crowds, lifted the whole place. I never thought we were going to get second place. I said that last week. I thought the other 2 teams a bit too much quality. I think that draw last night in Betis, I think that'll take the 2 of them through. It'll be a tough game over there. They'll want revenge. They're no mugs. I mean, even we should have won the game by a lot more. They're no mugs in their own playing at home. I think it'll be a tough game in a couple of weeks' time. So third place is by no means guaranteed yet, but certainly it was good. It was good, and you come away from the game thinking we should play more games on Tuesday afternoon. It was really good fun.
Traffic aside, Jim.
Traffic aside, yeah.
Tony, you were obviously there with a couple of the other guys from ACSOM. I think Russell and Declan were both there with a few others. Yeah, so you got a chance to obviously watch the game live. what were your assessments of it? Do you agree with Jim? Was it a bit flat before the goal went in, or how did the game progress for you?
First half was pretty flat and pedestrian, I thought. Joe Hart had the biggest save of the match up until then. But second half, Jim's right. The goal, and because of the nature of the goal, I don't say this often enough, or often at all, but the goal's a thing of beauty. If Xavi or Iniesta pass that to Messi and he kills it like that and buries it like that, that's been shown on a loop for time on perpetual motion. That's a wonderful, wonderful football goal. You'll go a long way to see a pass, a 60-yard pass executed like that to somebody's feet. No high, no waist height, to somebody's feet, and in the instant control and the finish. And Kyogo in that moment knew he couldn't miss. It was really important, and that's what I was talking about very early when he was snatching at things and that coolness. He showed it then. It's a wonderful goal. It lifted the stadium, it lifted the fans, it just lifted the tempo. Because Celtic should have battered them 4 or 5 after that. Okay, they missed the penalty. Anybody can miss a penalty, but they missed 2 real gilt edgers after that as well. But it was as good a performance as you've seen from Ange's men so far. Alkmaar, apart, I thought that was a right good performance too at home. And obviously the St Mirren and Dundee games, because they scored 6 and it was a bit rip-roaring, free-flowing, never boring. But that second half was pretty terrific, and I think I came away like every Celtic supporter enthused, thought we'd give ourselves a chance for second place. That's what we had to do, give ourselves a fighting chance. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think I said afterwards last week that last minute equaliser at Ibrox and the 2-0 win at Motherwell, I felt a momentum shift just in general and everything amongst the supports, amongst the players, amongst the manager. That's 2 clean sheets in a row now. Whilst it's not brilliant, we are ticking along nicely, to be fair. You know what I mean? But we are. And it's coming together, and you can see it coming together. And that's what's pleasing the supporters. And the manager can see it coming together. He now has options. Mikey Johnson came on. Giakoumakis came on. Love the look of Giakoumakis. I look at people and I think, is it natural? Everything he did was natural for a big guy. You want to rough it up, I'll go rough and tumble with you. You want to play it nice in the deck, couple of lovely layoffs, lovely chest control, and a volley, which went over the bar, and he won a couple of headers, and I thought, do you know what? Really good. Really enjoyed that cameo. Mikey Johnson's cameo as well. But problem with Mikey Johnson for me is he's not done that enough. He's not been consistent enough to warrant a start in the Celtic lineup. But you see things happening. You hear Forrest is coming back. That could maybe replace Abada.
Good idea, Tony. Good idea. Well done.
Jim's whipping boy at the minute. Julian hopefully coming back soon as well. Things are falling into place, right? It's been a slow burner, but you can see some light at the end of the tunnel with this team and playing some decent football in the process. So yeah, I'm like everybody else. You don't want to say too much and get carried away, but you are liking what you're seeing. And Ferencváros game put a smile on everybody's face. The first goal was just outstanding for me.
I think also, Laura, that what was encouraging about the last 2 games was the second half performances. I think earlier in the season, that was the big issue, that played well in the first half, kind of like faded in the second half. But both are really, really strong performances, much better in the first half. So is that an indication that they're getting used to Ange's way of playing football? Are they fitter now or whatever? But certainly that's more encouraging, because I don't think we've played a game this season where we've lost the first goal and come back and win the game. And that's always a kind of good sign to do that. So not that I want that to happen, but it'll be interesting to see that, because you do need that kind of fortitude in the second half to come back if we were to lose a goal, first. So, but yeah, I think that's the most encouraging thing. And if we just kind of maybe take our chances a bit more, just be a wee bit more careful in that last third. And I'd echo Tony's sentiment. I thought the big chap, Giakoumakis, was outstanding. Just looked dead confident. Give me the ball, I'll hold it up for you. And also wasn't afraid to have a proper go. The one where he put it in his chest and did the overhead kick. I think as a player who's got a bit of confidence, you couldn't see a Yeti doing that. He just walked into the team, looks full of confidence. And something I've said before, and I'll repeat it again, I'd love to see a tweak of that system to get him and Kyogo up front together, because again, excuse me, when you move Kyogo wide as they did the other night, doesn't really do very much. Great through the centre, brilliant through the centre. You move him wide, for me, against a man down. If we get the big two, if we get those two up front, and certainly against certain teams at home at Celtic Park, where you're going to make chance after chance after chance. If you've got two strikers up there, then you're going to convert more often than not. So I'd love to see that tomorrow, given how well the big chap played.
I think you might see that tomorrow, Jim.
Hope so.
Sometimes there's a wee kind of lull after a European tie. And I think that's an option that he has to keep it a freshness about it. Because the one thing about Jackie Mack is he looked fit and he looked sharp and he looked hungry. And I think he might want to see what he does in 90 minutes. I could be wrong in that, but I would certainly consider it. Because
also we put loads of high balls into the box, which are a waste of time.
Yeah.
Big chap's there, you've got kind of 50-50 chance of going to goal. So, yeah, it'd be good to see him as soon as possible. Because I said last week, here's a guy who, as we all know, is the top scorer in Holland. So you want to win the park to see what he can do. You want to give him his first few games in 2 or 3 months' time. He starts banging in goals, and you say, why don't we play him earlier in the season? But not in place of Kyogo. Get the two of them together.
Yeah, interesting question for you, Jim. If you had to pick Kyogo out wide or Abada out wide, who are you picking?
Montgomery.
Fair play.
I think if you put, I think Kyogo is outstanding through the centre, and he doesn't really take players on. I don't think that's his game either. And I think Adam Montgomery further forward. I like Montgomery. I thought he was a wee bit off it on Tuesday in terms of his passing, but he's got the confidence to go forward. I think right at the start of the second half, I think it was, he had he had a reasonably poor first half, but right at the start of the second half, he took a ball on the halfway line and took players on. So he's a dead confident player. And I'd like to see him further up the park where if he makes a mistake, it doesn't matter that much. Whereas when he made mistakes at the back, that pass he did to McGregor, and all of a sudden we could have lost a goal, But I just like to see him further forward. And I thought Jota was outstanding, but I thought Jota's best game this season was away to Betis, where he played on the right. So I'd rather, as I said the other week, I think I can have 4-1-3-2 for me, where I'd have Jota on the right and Montgomery or Mikey Johnson on the left, with the two guys up front, and you can rotate Turnbull and Rodgers with Carmack in the middle and the usual back four. But it'd be great to see the two guys up front, because I think it would be really exciting.
But the great thing about that that you've named, Jim, there is now options.
Yes.
For that, right, up until this moment, and that's a brilliant managerial headache to have. This is now when Ange starts selling his comp, but it's just great to have options. And he's always said, once he has options, that you'll see the best of the team. So you are looking forward to moving forward, going forward with confidence. You're looking forward to see what the team can produce now. It's
and also just to qualify, I'm not against Abada. I just think he's been relatively poor the past 4, 5, 6 games, and I think if with somebody else contributing more, I think that would benefit the team.
He's also 20 years old, Jim. So that's a big factor. I know you're not a big age man and stuff like that, but
I think there's two ways of looking. I think there's two ways of looking at Tony. You can say he's only 20, therefore you can expect inconsistency.
Yeah.
But keeping him in the team when he's not playing particularly well, it's a bit like saying that guy's 36, but he's been playing every week. Leave him out because he's not playing well. So Abada's a good player. I expect inconsistency. I just think it's maybe time for a wee change, that's all.
I actually agree with you that he should come out the team because he's gone off the boil. I'm agreeing with that. I wholeheartedly endorse that, and I would want the two guys up front as well. So I think if you're going to rest somebody, I think it's time Abada was pulled out the team for a wee spell because he's not producing as much as he has earlier. So
listen, Tony, I am not going to enter into this debate because I am biased far too much one way. Any football player that I've spoken to and has answered a question of mine is a pal of mine, and Leo Abada is that for me, so I'm going to keep out of this one.
He stays, Leo Abada stays, Laura. On that basis, you're biased.
And you spoke
You'd
earlier.
play Westlife in the team, so you would.
Aye, so I would. Nicky Byrne up front if you're watching. I know you've come for some charity matches, so if you want to play up front.
No idea who that is. Have you told me?
You need to watch a bit more Strictly. They were on Saturday, Jim. They were on Saturday.
What's that? Strictly what? What's that?
Speaking of things that you love to see, as Tony said earlier, Paddy Lavery on YouTube has said that Laura is rocking the Princess Leia look today, which I do appreciate, but I have to say, Paddy, you would not want to see me in a gold bikini to save your life, honest to goodness. Another question there from Robert Ingram on YouTube. Ralston for future captain. I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek, but Tony, Jim said earlier about Ralston, he's in one of his top 5 of the season. At what point do we stop talking about Ralston as playing better than we expect and actually just come to the conclusion that he is a good player doing the job he's supposed to do?
He's doing exactly what it says in the tin at the minute, so it ain't broke. Don't fix it, you know, and he's won over a lot of people, myself included. You know, he's wholehearted. He gives 100% effort and he's committed. And I think there was another wee incident where Ralston actually went for somebody and pointed in his face because they'd injured a Celtic player. You don't see that enough. And and also as well when Turnbull gave away the goal in the European game against Bayer Leverkusen and he lay there on the turf and Ralston grabbed him and said, "Get up, get on with it." You know, and maybe you don't associate these things with Ralston, but there's subtle nuances that he's becoming a team player. He's embracing the role in the team. He's becoming an important player in the team and things like that. I love to see that because there was a still of him pointing a guy's face as if you do that again, I'll do you. And then he was grabbing Turnbull and saying, "Right, you can't change it. Don't let it affect your game. Do something constructive then." You know, you actually sort of couldn't read what he was saying, but I'm sure it was words to that effect. Turnbull was just lying there, crestfallen. But the game, there was still plenty of time in the game. And you know, so I admire those things about Ralston because he has taken a barracan and a shuriken from someone like myself as well. But I've came on this pod and I've put my hand up and I said, you know what? I'm willing to cut him some slack. And these are things that I like, and these are things that the supporters see. You know, that's 2 instances, and as Jim pointed out, that he's now playing full-back, inverted full-back right winger, you know, because of Abada starting for him. You know, so, yeah, I think you have to a major hat tip to Ralston, you know, and just say the pressure that's been applied on him, he's risen to it, and he's stepped it up to the plate, and fair play to him, and long may it continue.
Chipped in with a few goals this season as well, especially the beginning of the season.
I think he's also maybe one of the guys that the newer players are looking to because there's not many players that have been there for a while. And I think also you don't have to have lots of great players to be a great team. You know, you can have players who, you know, perform a certain function. You know, so even though he's maybe not the most talented guy in the world, I think he's a consistent 7 out of 10. So yeah, I think easily in my top 5 players. Hopefully that continues for the season because he has been a great contribution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never a bad thing to have a Celtic Academy graduate in the team, and it's something that we always strive to make sure happens. Jim, I wanted to talk to you about another Academy graduate. Callum McGregor did have a great game on Tuesday, and I'm not doubting that. He unfortunately missed the penalty, and it did make me wonder, you know, we often struggle as a Celtic team to find a consistent penalty taker who can put the ball away for us. Is there a reason, do you think, why he's the one that's taking the penalty when we do have other more natural goal scorers in the team? Or who would be your option for taking penalties going forward, do you think?
I think Callum taking it is just a responsibility thing. I'm the captain, so I'll take it. But like you, I've got a very simple theory. If you're paid to score goals, then you take the penalties. It's for 2 reasons. 1, I think you should be the best at it. And 2, if you're a striker, you want to score as many goals as possible. So a shot from 12 yards unimpeded, why wouldn't you take that one? So Kyogo, for me, is the kind of obvious choice. Or maybe even Jota, because they play forward. Or somebody who's got a really hard shot, I suppose, going back to the days of Tommy Gemmell, just run away and blast it. Aye, and I think Callum McGregor has got a decent shot on him. Rodgers got a decent shot on him. Turnbull's got a decent shot on him. So these are the guys who take set pieces. So if you're pretty confident to take a set piece with like 10 guys standing in front of you and you're 25 yards out, 12 yards out, unimpeded, you should fancy your chances. But no, for me, it would always be a striker. Always be a striker.
Yeah.
Tony, that's an interesting thing that that Jim raises, is like, and it went through my head when I saw McGregor stepping up to take it. There's a list of people that should come before him, surely. I know that he'll feel the responsibility as a captain, but surely there's more natural choices there.
Well, my natural choice would be Kyogo, for the reason that Jim said. Strikers always want to score goals. Free shot from 12 yards, they would score more than they'd miss. And then David Turnbull, natural striker of a football. You know what I mean? So that's who would be in front of Callum McGregor in my mind. Now, it's all about attitude as well. Some guys don't like hitting penalties, I get that. And Callum took it as, clearly took the ball as a responsibility thing, as Jim said. But I would want strikers to take penalties all the time. Because I think strikers, they're used to scoring all types of goals. But see, if your striker is a penalty taker, he would practice them, wouldn't he?
Mm.
And he would practice them till he got it right. David Beckham used to practice free kicks till it became second nature to ping a ball 25 yards into the top corner. You know what I mean? The one he plonked down against Greece, took England to the World Cup. It was just natural ability. You practice something, you get good at it. You know what I mean? It's funny, that, isn't it? And Beckham was one of these guys that took 100 balls after training and plonked free kicks into the top corner. Repetition. Footballers, if you're a striker, I would do that, and you're a penalty taker, I would do that till it becomes second nature. And Celtic have missed a few penalties of late. I remember Christie missing one against Rangers. McGregor saved it. I don't think since Dembele they've had a natural penalty taker.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Well,
I think it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, and I would always be a striker in favour of a striker taking penalties, or a natural striker of a ball, which to me is Turnbull then. Because if you let it in from 25, 30 yards, then, from 12 yards.
I think it's back to that whole mentality thing, Tony. Yeah. And that, stepping up there, the expectation that you're going to score, all eyes are on you. Yeah. You've everything to lose because, people are expecting you to score. And I find that fascinating. I thought you mentioned Dembele was excellent. Eddie, although he missed a few, he had that confidence to do that in the cup final. But I find it fascinating when forwards don't take penalties, particularly if it's a penalty shootout. You go back to the Euros there. I think Sterling didn't take a penalty, did he? When he came to the final. Right, and you're thinking, why would you not take a penalty? Because you're in the best place. So maybe it was a kind of mental thing that didn't really fancy being in that position. And who knows? But I agree with Tony. Kyogo is the guy to take them. And maybe the big Dutch, maybe the big guy might be not bad either. So we'll see what happens.
I wouldn't be averse to him hitting if he wants them,
Yeah, and there's a lot of comments coming in regard to it, just in what we've been talking about. Stevie Boy on YouTube says Ralston has done nothing but improve, gives 110%. He gets my nod. Kieran 1888, I think, is on Jim's side as far as the Tommy Genimal reference is concerned. Just give it a long run up and take the goalie into the back of the net with it. Lanky67 makes a good point, says David Turnbull took penalties for Motherwell when he played for them. I don't know what his conversion rate was like, but certainly he's never afraid to step up for a set piece, so maybe a penalty would be in the offing for him as well. So all interesting points. I'm sure probably if we looked long enough, I even saw somebody suggest Joe Hart, so you could get somebody back in each and every player in the team. Having said that, we might get a chance to see who's a penalty taker tomorrow on Saturday against St Johnstone. Who knows? A 3:00 kickoff on a Saturday, a rarity these days. Tony, I'll come to you first. I was looking just because I think we've all got this positive opinion of St Johnstone and what they've done, which is fair enough. They won two cups last season. Callum Davidson is doing a fantastic job with them with the resources that he's got. But I think they're sitting 9th in the table at the moment. They've lost four of their opening 9 games, 3 of those in the last 5 games. Is this as much of a challenge for us as we maybe like to think it is? Or what problems do you see St Johnstone giving us tomorrow?
Callum Davidson should have retired from management after last season. It was only going to go one way, down. But listen, they've held on to the nucleus of that squad. They're not a bad team. They're not all of a sudden become a bad team. They're having a bad spell. last season. They had a good spell. They won the 2 trophies. Every team that Celtic play will present its own challenge. The one thing Celtic have to guard against is complacency and thinking that's it, they've turned the corner, that's that winning run coming to fruition. The minute you think like that, you'll get smacked in the face. And St Johnstone are the kind of team to do that. The way they'll play. They like to sit in and they'll play their 3 or 4 across the back. Big Effie's there now as well, isn't he? But it was a surprise result of last week's fixtures that Livingston turned them over 3-0. So I think if you're Celtic, you're maybe getting St Johnstone at an optimum time. When you can maybe inflict some further damage on them. And Celtic are kind of riding crest of a wee wave at the minute. They're playing well. They're at home. They'll have the crowd on their side. 3 o'clock kickoff, as you said, there'll be a full house there. So all the ingredients and conditions are there for Celtic to go and possibly swap St Johnstone aside. But you have to be mindful of the threat that they pose, and you've got to be on it. If you're not on it, you'll find out the hard way again. But as I say, I think there's momentum's with Celtic, and I can't see anything other than a home win tomorrow, and a possibly convincing one. So I think it's probably a good time to be playing a team that maybe are lacking in confidence, with the other side, brimming with confidence.
100%. I have to say I'm probably on board with that. Jim, do you agree? Are we riding the crest of a wave at the moment? Do you see it carrying us through the game tomorrow, or are you anticipating problems from St Johnstone?
I wouldn't say we're riding a crest of a wave. I think that's a bit up there somewhere. I think they've had a kind of so-so start to the season, bit of a kind of yo-yo. St Johnstone, after last season's heroics. On their day, they're a match for anyone, as people would say. They should have maybe taken some points off the league leaders. A few weeks ago, they've got players who can cause us problems. But I was just thinking that a few weeks ago, I thought Aberdeen would give us a hard game, and Aberdeen were rubbish. I thought Motherwell would give us a hard game last week, and Motherwell were rubbish. So I'm going to say that St Johnstone are rubbish, so that we win quite convincingly, because that's how that should work. I'd say no. I think on their day they're a good team, but I think every week we're saying, because we've dropped so many points, every game is a must-win game, and what happened last week at Ibrox has given us all a wee boost to think what's only 4 points in it, and with them playing on Sunday, there's a chance at last to put a little bit of pressure on them to get it down to 1. And I think people are a wee bit off the mark when they talk about maybe their bottles crashing, because they drew last week. I think they had 27 shots in goal last week and scored 1 goal. So I think they were extremely unlucky not to win last week. Although they've been lucky maybe in other games to win games. So they're still a good team, and there's still a long way to go. So if we don't win tomorrow, we'll be back to crisis again. It's never mind crest of a wave, crisis of a wave would end up being. But I'd like to think we can go out there on the back of Tuesday, 60,000 people there. Maybe change up a wee bit, maybe with the 2 up front, maybe 1 or 2 other wee changes. Keep the back 4 the same, the back 5 the same, but maybe 1 or 2 wee changes just to freshen up. Because the point Tony made there, if you're not on it, and I think if you do change 1 or 2, that keeps everyone on their toes. There's a league there to be won. As I've said before, these are all just stepping stones towards the league, and don't get too up when we win, don't get too down when we lose. We're still well in this, and win tomorrow, and that puts a wee bit of pressure on. Because St Mirren have been playing well. I think they've won the last 3 games. So I think we'll win tomorrow. Yeah.
Tony, Jim's talked about changes to the lineup, possibly going with 2 up front. I think you mentioned a 4-1-3-2 earlier in the show. I would love nothing more than a Celtic team to come out at Celtic Park and play that kind of tactic and go gung ho for it and see where it gets us. But do you think that is something that Ange would try and do? Do you think that's a change that we can see, even if it's one that we want? Or do you think he's going to stick with the team that's got us the results that we've got in the past few games?
Do you know what? It's as I alluded to earlier, he now has the options to do that. And I think he might actually do that tomorrow. I can see Giakoumakis and Kyogo playing, because you maybe want to keep it fresh and stop that lull. Great tabloid journalistic phrase, a European hangover from sitting in, right? That kind of stuff, right? So if you don't want those kind of things to happen, you G it up, keep everybody on their toes, as Jim says, and you freshen it up. And I think Giakoumakis should be in the team on merit because his cameo was terrific, and a lot of the Celtic supporters came away thinking, "Let's see what the big man can do from the start." And I think games like tomorrow are tailor-made for Ange to maybe do something like that, and play the two of them through the middle and actually go for it. Because these are the games where you can maybe afford to go gung-ho and see where it takes you and try and finish it early. Try and get yourselves, Jim said earlier, try and kill it early. And I've got a feeling in the back of my mind, could be wrong, but I think you could be thinking the same. Because I think you might think that, with the crowd behind them, and if they can play the football that they want, and get off to a great start, then they can possibly manage to do that. It's now within them. But as I said, the great thing is he's got options, and he can tinker with the side now and do certain things. But he's quite steadfast in his beliefs and his system and the way he wants to play. He's not shown too much of that so far. So that's fair enough. But would you be surprised to see Kyogo and Giakoumakis start tomorrow? My personal feeling is no. But because I think it's what a lot of people would want to see. And going back to it, we've spoken about Abada, who maybe just needs to come out. So you cater your lineup for that kind of change. So I that's what I would do. But what I would do and what Ange would do would be two different things. And tomorrow he'd probably shoot me a glance and say, "Oh, aye, is that right? Picking the team for me?" That kind of thing. But yeah.
Mate. Yeah.
Mate. I get it, Jim, mate.
Mate, oh my goodness. Talk about a verbal laxative. If Ange called me mate, I would be having to go somewhere else.
I think the consensus here is we'd all like to see that, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to see Celtic go and attack, and I think they could do that against St Johnstone and get some joy.
There's certainly less risk at Celtic Park to do that against a team who are in the bottom six, albeit they're a good team.
Yeah.
Different maybe if we're playing the league leaders or a European game, we might shoot ourselves in the foot. But if you can't have a go after Tuesday playing at home, then you might never do that. But anyway, we'll see what the big man does.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see it because I think it would give him the opportunity to really sort of open the tap, so to speak, and really put out a display that really it sort of drives home all the philosophies that he talks about. But it remains to be seen. Looking a bit further back in the team, Jim, I wanted to come to you for your thoughts on it because obviously we have had a couple of clean sheets now. I had a bit of a reputation for making Starfelt a bit of a whipping boy earlier on in his career.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I know. It's almost as if you're not allowed to say when a player plays badly for Celtic, but there you go. He has settled down a little bit, though. Don't get me wrong, there's still some scary moments there. Do you think he's finding his feet a little bit? Do you think there's a partnership building there with him and CCV?
See, before answering that question, I'll just go back to the previous question. Just kind of thinking there that sometimes when you change the formation a wee bit, and if it works really, really well, all of a sudden that becomes a new template.
Yeah.
So if we did do the 2 up tomorrow and Giakoumakis scores a hat-trick and Kyogo scores 2, you might think maybe this is the way to play moving forward. In terms of Starfelt, I've said consistently on the podcast that in the big games, I think he's shown up. He has showed up as opposed to being shown up. He has showed up on the big games, and I thought he's played really well. There's always a wee mistake in him, maybe, and I think hopefully we can get that out of his game. I think he forms a decent partnership with Carlton Vickers. I think people say we want Julian back. Julian's getting better with every week he's not playing. So could you get better than Starfelt for £4 million? I think you could. Has he played well in the big games? I think he has. I've said that consistently. Has he got the odd mistake in him? Yes, he has. And I think that's a wee bit of his game we need to kind of take out. He had a wee kind of daft mistake the other day, which wasn't too clever. And I think he's getting used to the whole heart attack football along the back four. And I think that'll come in time. Because when you watch other teams play that kind of football, they look so much more confident. They look so much more quicker. I think we just look a bit laboured. It's very kind of over to you, back to me, over to you. But whereas other teams, when you watch them on the continent, it's a faster version of that.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure whether the two guys we've got playing centre back are kind of like ideal for that kind of game. But that's the way the big man wants to play. So we'll keep playing the game. But in terms of defending, last ditch tackles, putting your head on the ball when you need to put your head on the ball, I think he's been absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. So shame on you, Laura. Shame on you.
I know. And there I've gone changed my mind as well. You're not allowed to do that either.
We'll do a badder next week. Okay. So.
when he goes out and scores a hat-trick against St Johnstone, Jim, we'll
Yes.
see what happens.
Revisit that, yes.
Tony, it's a funny one because as much as I'm talking to Jim about Starfelt and his improved performances, the man at his side in the centre-back position, Cameron Carter-Vickers, has come in and looked as at home as any new signing has for Celtic, to the point where hardly anybody's even talking about him, really. What have you made of the way he's settled in? Is he somebody you'd like to see us try and bring permanently to the club?
That's a good thing that nobody's talking about him, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's just under the radar and he's performing steadily, 7, 8 out of 10 type performances. Really just gets it, and knows what's required and has taken it all in his stride. Looks a bit unflappable, and pretty cool, and he said a couple of mistakes thinking the Betis game and stuff, but he's learned from them clearly because he's not made many after that, has he?
No.
And actually one of our better attacks against Bayer Leverkusen was a 50-yard through the middle to Kyogo from CCV. Brilliant pass. Again, Kyogo took it in his stride, tried to go around the goalkeeper instead of maybe having a first-time shot once he'd controlled it. But, I've been really impressed by Carter-Vickers, and because he's been so good, I actually think he's complemented Starfelt, and Starfelt used his game a bit. So the two of them have kind of dovetailed a wee bit together, and he's thinking, do you know what? This guy's he's taking his lead, and I agree with Jim. They don't look particularly comfortable with the ball playing it around at the back. It's very slow. It's deliberate. It looks cumbersome at times, especially with Starfelt. But I think Carter-Vickers out the two is sort of saying, look, I'll take it off you if you feel under pressure. I'll do that. I'll look up. I'll maybe shell the odd one long looking for Kyogo. Should always be looking for Kyogo because he's always on the move. And I think Carter-Vickers has grasped that very quickly because you see him now and again looking up and thinking, am I good enough to get it to him from like 70 yards away? And he did against Leverkusen. It was a brilliant pass. So he's got that in his locker. But I'm very happy with Cameron Carter-Vickers. And I think just now they've got the option to buy him, haven't they? They should be having a look at that, as with Jota as well. They should be starting.
Jamie Young on YouTube is actually saying he might be out of contract at the end of the season. So I don't know if that's the case or not.
Well, fair enough. Well, whatever he is, Celtic should be looking at that right now and trying to get him on a permanent deal, because he has come in, he's looked the part, and he's solidified that defence. And you can argue the toss about when Julie comes back, does he come in for Starfelt or whoever? But I think Starfelt's raised his game a wee bit, and from small acorns, that's 2 clean sheets in the bounce. That works wonders for defenders' confidence. That's what they play football for. They pride themselves in that, So as much as we were having a go at them, or for losing goals at the start of the season, at the start of the campaign, you have to praise them when they've not lost goals in the last 2 games, regardless of the opposition. They can only play what's in front of them. So, you can argue the toss, as Jim said, Motherwell were rubbish. That's fair, they were. They never tested your hat. Ferencváros could have punished Celtic, but they didn't. So, fair play to the defenders. And, Starfelt is just, I think a lot of people's personal jury's out at this minute in time, but they're warming to him. They're coming round. So hopefully that can continue.
I think fans tend to make their mind up pretty quickly on someone, and it's hard to change their mind. Once they've made their mind up, I don't like this guy, then they're looking for reasons not to like him. We're waiting for that mistake. Told you we'd do that. Exactly. So it's always harder to win people over. Whereas if you go off to a really good start, like the big chap and choose Jackie Mackie, you're thinking, he looks really good. Get on, he's great.
Yeah.
He might be rubbish.
He's almost. I see Starfelt almost as a one-man representation of how the season's going. Everybody wasn't sure at the start. It was looking a bit shaky.
That's
It's
deep.
that-
That's deep.
Well, I just, there's a lot going on under this Princess Leia hairdo, I have to say.
I think Ange would say that's controversial, mate.
Aye.
Oh, really?
Oh, aye.
Possibly. Oh, wow. Aye.
Oh,
But,
well,
I
I'm
mean,
glad I
sure-
didn't say it in front of him then.
I'm sure you would explain yourself well, Laura. I mean, I don't think there's any problem with that. You know, as long as you can
Don't be
back it
silly,
up.
Tony. You've been on a pod with me nearly a year now. You know I'm not going to be able to explain myself properly. But anyway, another lone player we're looking at, Jim, who had an outstanding second half, certainly against Ferencváros the other night, made that amazing pass, was Jota. I think he's quickly becoming a fan favourite. Do you think he's worth shelling out the rumoured £6.5 million that Benfica would be looking for to make him a permanent signing?
I think you have to maybe wait to maybe halfway through the season. Let's see how things go. But certainly, he's made a great start. What I like about him, he's heads up all the time, and he'll take players on. And I'm not having I've got a batter again. But anytime they give the ball to Jota, he's heads up and he's taking players on. And you can't expect him to kind of get by players all the time. So even if he does that 60% of the time, he's going to create things. I like that about him. He can play in both wings. He's got 2 good feet. He can score a goal. I think he's been a wee bit careless in front of goal. I think there's lots of goals to come from him. I think we've been guilty in the past of somebody playing a few good games and you say, you need to sign this guy. At the moment, I would be thinking, yes, we should maybe sign the guy, but let's see where we are in a few months' time. I don't know what the details are or whether, do we if we get first dibs on him come the end of the season, we pay 6.5 and we get him, or does he have other choices as well, or whatever? If that's the case, could we get in and buy him quickly? And that kind of sorts all that stuff out. So obviously, all these loan deals are quite complex. And if you're Jota, then you've kind of put yourself in the short window. And as Tony said, the sublime nature of that pass has been all around Europe. Who's that guy? Plays for Benfica, does he? Well, we'll have a look at him maybe. And he's not tied down to Celtic. No, he's not. So depending on the kind of legally contractual stuff that's behind this, who knows? But he certainly played really, really well. He plays in the top end of the park. He beats players. He can score goals. He's a pretty confident guy. Good hairstyle, the whole thing. So I would say yes at this point in time, but maybe give him another couple of months and kind of see how things pan out. But on the evidence of what he's done so far, it's a kind of thumbs up for me. Yeah.
I'll tell you something. If there's not an adapted version of Last Christmas getting played at Celtic Park or sung at Celtic Park this Christmas and New Year, I'll be very disappointed. So anybody in the chat who's responsible for getting these chants started at Celtic Park, get on it.
You make the lyrics up as you go along, Laura.
Fair play.
We'll settle a mind to it at some point.
I wondered lonely as a clown springs to mind.
It's very apt, isn't it?
Tony, what's your opinion on Jota? Are you already nailed down thinking we've got to do what we can to get him, or are you more with Jim? We need to give it a bit more time.
Yeah, give it a bit more time. But the great thing is that unlike other loan deals, Celtic do have first refusal on him, which is a change to the normal loan deals that they'd set up. They've got first refusal on him and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now, come the end of the season, Jota's price will be what it is. You've got a simple yes or no question. If he plays the way he has done till the end of the season, then it's a no-brainer, isn't it? You shell out the money, and I think it is $6.5 million, isn't it? So come the end of it, so you have first refusal on a player like that.
So Tony, what if Jota doesn't fancy coming?
Well, that's the thing. Well, he doesn't sign, does he? You can't convince him to sign if he doesn't want to. But but I guess if he plays the way he is and he's enjoying it and he's happy, then there's no substitute for a happy footballer. And I think that's it's quite seductive playing in front of the Celtic fans, 60,000 people. There's not very many clubs in Europe where you can play that. You can play regular European football and you can win and be successful and you can be loved. I think they're quite powerful. I'll say the word in inverted commas, drugs for a footballer. They like that kind of thing. And at this moment in time, Jota's in a place where he's absolutely adored and he's loved. at this minute in time. He's striking up a brilliant, partnership or understanding with Kyogo, even to the point where he said the other day, Kyogo doesn't speak any English. That doesn't make any difference. I'll learn Japanese if I have to speak to him to communicate with him. I just thought that's a lovely touch. That, I mean, imagine a player saying that about another individual from another country and saying, doesn't matter if you can't speak English, I'll go and learn Japanese and I'll be able to communicate with you. But didn't seem to have a problem communicating the language of football the other day, so you say to yourself, this is all going well, and if you can keep them all together, then you do feel as if you're on the cusp of something special moving forward. And at the end of the season, we'll find out if they stay, but I think they're no substitute for being happy, being successful, scoring goals, being a pivotal player, being a big fish. All right, might be in a small pool, and I get what you're saying, Jim. Other people will be watching Jota as well. But one thing Celtic do have is the first refusal on it, and if the guy's anywhere near happy, then I think you'd be inclined to stay, especially if they win the league and you could maybe play in the Champions League, and then you accept that these guys are here for as long as they're here for 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe tops. But I think there's
a figure been mentioned for Carter Vickers? Has there a number been mentioned in terms of transfer fee?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe some commenters can tell me different. But
Laura said he could be available in a free at the end of the season. So
one of the commenters did say they thought he was out of contract at the end of the season. So that would be
pay a couple of million and get him now. That kind of
So that would be sensible, wouldn't it? Because when he's available for a free, then lots of people would come in, wouldn't they? And maybe trump you. That's the thing, But I'm pleased with Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers at the moment. I'm pleased with their contribution, and there is the temptation to say sign them now. That's the thing, isn't it? Because they're playing well. So you wait a wee bit longer. But I certainly think there'd be no harm in starting the ball rolling on conversations to see where their head's at, and then having more conversations as the season progresses to see if their head's still in that place.
Yeah, I think a couple of things to say in his favour is, he really does look like he's enjoying his football, which we haven't been able to say about every Celtic player over the last few years. And the other thing is as well, I'm just looking at his statistics here. He's actually made only 23 senior appearances since making his senior debut for Benfica in 2018. So, you wonder for a player who's been in and about the first team since 2018, still going out on loan 3 years later, how close is he to ever having, a career to speak of at Benfica? And therefore, is he already thinking, well, I'm on the way out the door, I may as well go somewhere that I'm enjoying my football? And like you say, there are a few places in Europe that would be more enjoyable than a Celtic Park where you're having success, So
see those stats, Laura, does that not sound kind of similar to Mikey Johnson a wee bit? In terms of
a little bit, yeah.
And,
Yeah, I think, and I think that if you looked at that way, I know, like, if Mikey Johnson went out on loan and was getting regular football and being loved somewhere else, I'm sure he would consider the move as well. So it's all about, like you say, Tony, getting playing time, being happy playing your football, and he's certainly getting that here. So it'll be an interesting one to try and establish whether we can get a hold of him or whether he's somebody that we can look to for the future. Talking about Giakoumakis, just to close up, Jim, the thing I liked about him in the Ferencváros game was, as Tony said before, he had that mix of, not to use another, footballing cliche, but a good touch for a big man. He was like physical. He looked as if he was mobile as well, which you don't always get with a player of his stature. If he can get in the team, he's going to be hard to shift, both physically and otherwise, isn't he?
Before I answer the question, I just remember there's a food bank collection tomorrow before the game. So that's probably the most important thing I said today. So if you're going to the game tomorrow, please bring along a bag or two of food for those less fortunate.
Absolutely.
Giakoumakis, I think we covered that earlier. I think Tony and I are both big fans of the big chap. He'll give anyone problems. He looked dead confident. As I said before, he scored bags of goals last season. Just give him a chance. All we are saying is give him a chance. Please, Ange, mate, give him a chance. Give him a full game and let's see what he can do. Because as I said earlier, that it'd be terrible he doesn't start playing for a couple of months' time and he starts banging goals in for fun. Because as I said, also, if you maybe change the shape a wee bit, play all the football we're playing, all the passing game, you keep on that going with a slight tweak with a big guy up front. And if he does go to town and score goals and we've found a new hero, then we're even more confident moving forward. But if we don't do that, then we'll never know. So play him, please, Ange, mate. Before Tony makes his greet in the last minute.
I know, that's it.
You've got a minute, Tony. A minute to make his greet. Go, now.
I'll spare you the rod on that one. I would just like to see the Greek striker as well. So, it's in the famous Monty Python sketch, German philosophers against the Greek philosophers, and John Cleese shouts, "Here comes the Greeks!" Yeah, that's what we want tomorrow. Here comes the Greek. That's what we want.
Here come the Greeks. Yeah, no, I think we'll bow out on that particular phrase and say thank you very much to everybody for watching us today. It's been a really enjoyable one today. Thank you to Jim. Thank you to Tony, and we will be back on A Celtic State of Mind tomorrow for the match coverage starting at 2:30. See you then.
Cheers, Laura.